There comes a time in everyone's life where we must face the truth. But what is the truth? Did existence really begin with the Big Bang? Is what we've been taught in our history books some sort of fictional reality? It's hard to find the truth in a world full of lies. However, we do have the strength within us to find the truth, to unveil it, and present it to the world for what it really is. It's your world, your reality, your truth. Greetings everybody, welcome to Unveiling the Truth for the episode for April 12th, 2014. What an intense week this has been, that's all I gotta say. Anybody who's been keeping up with the news and events around the world will know that our American brothers and sisters are going through a lot of stuff right now, especially in Nevada with the Bundy ranch. And that's something I've been keeping an eye on. Mind you, I don't have an episode planned for it or anything like that. Truth Broadcast Network has been covering the issue though. So anybody who wants to find out current updates and stuff, I'd suggest checking out truthbroadcastnetwork.com. Harry's been trying to keep on top of that and getting good information out to the people. But I've been watching it as well, saying some things, posted a couple things on my Facebook, etc. But I thought I'd use the first few minutes of this broadcast before I get the guests on tonight to discuss the topic, because it is a very important one, and there has been some recent developments that I want to let people know about as well. So just to let you guys know, tonight's guests, we have David Whitehead, as well as Christopher Russack from the Modern Knowledge Tour. And the Modern Knowledge Tour is touring around Canada, and they're presenting speakers for seminars, which will be hitting the major cities around Canada. And there's some great speakers that they have on board. In fact, we're having a guest on the show tonight, an exclusive appearance for this show to discuss the tour. So I'm looking forward to bringing those guests on momentarily. But first, I want to discuss a bit about what's going on at the Bundy Ranch. And I'll just get something up on the screen here for you guys, because, I mean, my personal opinion on the matter is, essentially what happened is his cattle, this Clive Bundy guy, he owns a ranch around there. His family were protecting their property essentially because land management went in. They tried to, some of the cattle grazed off of their property, etc., and the government was getting upset about that. And also apparently the Bundy Ranch hasn't paid taxes in a while or something like that. They're fighting for a lot of things. I'm not too sure about the specifics on that sort of thing. However, the situation had escalated and people were thrown around defending the property from the government. Essentially, the federal government's going in to try to, the Bureau of Land Management is trying to come in and take the property and stuff like that. So that's pretty brutal with that. They did manage to take some cattle and stuff, but a lot of people are standing up for the Bundys and going there, as well as some militia groups have been formed. They've went there on scene to, get in on the situation and show their support for the Bundy family. But I mean, if you're looking at it from an outsider perspective and listening to the details and stuff, it's really hard to weed out what's going on there. But for anybody who's familiar with tactics, I mean, if this was part of some sort of agenda and stuff like that, anybody familiar with any sort of tactics would understand that there's always an agenda behind things like this. So there could be a hidden agenda behind this, where they're trying to draw people into the area. That's what it seemed like. It seemed like some of the news sources were blowing the issue way out of proportion at the beginning stages as well. I mean, I watched the video that's been posted online. Anybody should check that out, where Eamon Bundy, his son, apparently got tasered a bunch of times by the police, and he's just walking into these tasers. They're hitting him. He's pulling them out of his chest, and he just keeps going at the police. It's pretty. I mean, that guy's definitely a patriot and a half. That's all I got to say. So they were defending vigilantly, and because of that escalation there, lots of people felt drawn to the area that they needed to go there. And anybody familiar with intelligence agencies, military operations, the term honey trap comes to mind. You know what I mean? That's what I get from the situation anyways. Honey trap is essentially using, woman or male to get information out of somebody, or to, use them as bait, I guess you could say, like bringing bees to the honey and stuff. That seems like what's going on here with the Bundy Ranch. I mean, the place is called Bunkerville. There's militia groups forming there. Apparently, though, with these updates, things have kind of turned out for the better, I guess, for in the terms of a victory. Anyways, I'm going to show you guys a couple news reports there. But first, it's very fishy in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? It seems like it's a honey trap type of situation. They're trying to draw people in there. And if that does escalate with guns, violence, anybody dead, anything like that, I would say that is likely part of the agenda. Whether it's part of disarming the American people. I mean, look at the way the federal government is trying to disarm the American people. I mean, when they wanted to register the guns in Connecticut, people didn't show up. They refused to do that. And that's awesome. I mean, that's what needs to be done. They do need to keep their firearms, just like us here in Canada. We do need that right to protect ourselves from the government, because that's why we have that right. It's not only to hunt if you need to for survival. It's also for defense, and it's to protect yourself from the government. Straight up, that's the truth of it all. So, I mean, with what's happening there in the Bundy ranch and stuff, it's pretty intense. I've been watching it escalate, and it seems like the Bureau of Land Management has left. That's the latest news, that the people won. They're leaving. They're retreating, I guess you could say. I'll get this on screen for you guys just to show you. There we go. And I'm going to swing this over. So, and this is another key element right here. This could be another reason why this is happening. Chinese solar deal could start next American revolution at Bundy Ranch. Now, this is what I'm talking about. A lot of these media sources are hyping it, making it seem like it's something a lot more intense than it actually is. I mean, anybody who's seen the videos, the video of the guy getting tased and that kind of confrontation and dispute there, and you got Pete Santilli on scene there, apparently, during all of this, which is another fishy aspect to the whole thing. But anyways, he's saying he's calling a medic for her, and it doesn't look like she has any scrapes whatsoever. I mean, he was trying to call for an ambulance and 911, I guess, but I didn't see any blood. I didn't see any major injuries. She seemed fine, a bit shook up because of the situation, but I don't think she needed a medic. But that's how some of these media places will hype events like this, create this fear and panic to get everybody riled up, which seems to have happened, and it worked. However, there's this little piece of information here. Chinese solar deal could start next American revolution at Bundy Ranch. A heated situation in Nevada. Standoff between 140-year homesteading family rancher Cliven Bundy and BLM apparently had its origin with a sweetheart $5 billion deal between Senator Harry Reid and the Chinese to put solar panels and manufacturing on the land. So all across that land there's a $5 billion deal going down to build solar panels. And this is a deal through the Chinese. And Senator Harry Reid is at the helm of this. And here's some updates, though. Right at the top, update victory. Clark County Sheriff announces the Bureau of Land Management will cease operation, open land to public. So they did close off. They designated free speech zones. I mean, that totally goes against people's rights. I mean, we have the right to speak. We have the right, to all sorts of rights. And rights are being denied in this situation entirely by even designating these zones, which is totally against anything that people believe in. I mean, that's absurdity right there. But here we go, live coverage underway, being watched by over 7,000 people. I don't know why that's crossed out, but was up to over 10,000 when the feed stopped. So at 12:05, the feed stopped, the live feed from there. People were reporting that cell towers were down. People couldn't communicate with anybody. And I was reading responses from people that were there saying that it was fine. So there is a lot of disinformation going out there, saying that, you know, the cell phone towers don't work, then they do, from people on the ground there. I mean, I'm in Canada, so I'm not exactly 100% sure what's going on the ground there, but a couple of my friends are going there that are on my Facebook and stuff, and they said they'd keep me up to date on things. I haven't heard from them since. Hopefully they made it there all right and everything's good, but additional updates, there's an InfoWars article as well. I'll show you guys that in a moment, but the sheriff did not disarm the BLM, so Bundy and crowd are going to go liberate the cattle. Apparently they got some of their cattle back as well, but the feds tell at 1:20 p.m. Here's something interesting. Feds tell crowd they will shoot them. Militia rallying. So here's a video as well. I'll show you guys this. It's a 5-minute
Okay,
video,
ladies and gentlemen, I'll explain in a minute. David Knight, give him your report via phone from Nevada.
That's right, Alex. We're here. We've lost our Ustream feed. It looks like the data has been shut down. If we had any out here, everything was working, and then all of a sudden it stopped. We've got a lot of people standing here in front of the BLM, and now the guys who are the cowboys on horses have just arrived to come take the cattle. A lot of dust. Across the way, we have armed soldiers, heavily armed soldiers, hiding behind their cars, barking orders from the loudspeaker saying we have to leave the area, that this is under a court order. And we've been waiting here for the cowboys to arrive on horseback who are going to take the cattle.
And by the way, it looks like about 1,000 people. It looks like about 1,000 people are massing to take the cattle. You guys had blocked the highway. Bundy ordered that. The public has done it. They're blocking the highway after they shot and killed a guy on a bicycle a few weeks ago. People are sick of the occupation. When the feed cut out, I thought I saw cops saying, "Get back, get back." So you're saying there is a confrontation right now?
Yes, right now the guys on horses are arriving. They're lining up. There's a lot of police as well as BLM that have created a barricade, and we were waiting here for the mounted cowboys to get here, and we're waiting to see what's happening. They're now barking orders, telling people that they need to get out of the area.
Okay, that's because the cars drove.
We got semis blowing their horns to support. We've got hundreds of people up on top of the interstate watching this. And we're going to see if this is going to be a new Bunker Hill. This is Bunkerville, Nevada, amazingly enough. And it looks like this is going to be a stand where we either stand down and lose our rights or we stand up to these bullies.
Okay, I mean, just to describe to people out there, you talked to a bunch of folks earlier. You said all the feeds have been cut. It's not just your data. It looked like over 1,000 cars and horses and people before the feed got cut. You were at the front of it. The horses were behind the cars. They're about to arrive. And Bundy is saying when he arrives on horseback, they're going to ride through to get the 300 cows that the BLM has not given back. This is like 1776, Boston Tea Party, Lexington Concord. And I'm having to call you to get an audio report for folks. I'm in Austin, Texas. You're in Nevada. Now, they partially backed down today and said that they were going to give the public use of the land again, but they've been setting up checkpoints for years, harassing people. We now know it's about the Chinese government and Harry Reid. This is the stuff beyond movies. This is history happening, David Knight. Your take on this?
Well, this is really amazing, Alex. We've got a line of mounted cowboys. At the moment, they're stopped just short of the gate, probably about 40 yards short of the gate. We've got people on both interstate. This is an area that's divided on either side by the interstate. People are stopping in both directions to honk horns to support. We have a huge crowd of people that are up on the interstate, as well as a large number of people on foot down here. More are coming all the time. It's building up. On the other side, we have the feds, who are heavily armed, militarized, as we've seen from the very beginning. A lot of bulletproof vests, very heavy AR-15s, heavily armed.
And they're barking orders now.
Barking orders and hiding behind their cars, threatening to shoot us, threatening to shoot the people sitting here saying, I'm just listening, and they would not talk to them. They just kept waving him off. And I figured if we had any more people walk up there and talk to them, that
well,
would really
David, we're praying.
They're a bunch of cowards hiding behind their cars.
David, we're praying for you and Josh and everybody out there. This is an incredibly dangerous situation. This is the shot heard around the world type stuff in 1775. Continue to report. I'm going to continue to call you back and upload YouTube videos working here from Austin, Texas. I think I'm going to have the radio crew come in and do an emergency live feed with you while you've got cell phone. But again, you talk to others. All the data feeds of people you talk to have been cut. We have been told that they've done a no-fly zone so that media can't cover it. And you're saying they were threatening to shoot peaceful people who are saying they're going to walk on the public land.
Yes, they would not respond to us. They would not meet with us. All they would do is just keep picking the loudspeaker.
All right, David.
Leave the area, you be shot.
David, I'm going to upload this right now.
Down here now, and he's getting footage.
All right, well, tell Josh to be careful. I'm going to upload this now and continue to get uploads. This is breaking. Thank you so much, David Knight. I'll call you right back.
All right, bye-bye.
Keep trying the live feeds. Thank you. Okay, again, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Jones here reporting. This is guerrilla journalism. We're uploading this to Infowars.com right now. DrudgeReport.com had the live feed. That's been cut. We'll start uploading these right now. Pray for everybody. This is serious. It's only the beginning. Believe me, the feds had backed down, but Bundy doubled down for freedom, and this is so historical. Alex Jones for Infowars.com. Pray for our crew and everybody out there.
Well, there's an update from the ground, and as you heard David Knight say, that the live feeds, video feeds were cut off. Seems like the cell phone towers were still working. His phone seemed to work to call Alex for that update. So there is some videos as well from the area. There's other videos. Check it out. Anybody who wants to check out more information in that website that I had up, here it is. This is the Chinese solar deal article, and the website is Pure Energy Systems, PESN.com. It's on there. So anybody who wants to check that out, there it is. And there's also an InfoWars article I just want to quickly bring up here. And it's the same thing. Senator Harry Reid behind BLM land grab of Bundy Ranch. And I mean, keep in mind as well that the timing of that call from David Knight was here at 1:20, so it was early, you know what I mean? I mean, here's the update right here, the victory. BLM will cease operations and leave. So there was a standoff there, and seems like a victory was won, but it's, you know, it could have been a test to test people, to see what would happen in that sort of situation. Like I said, the honey trap scenario, just without a sexual meaning behind it, more of an intelligence gathering meaning, stuff like that. So it is pretty fishy situation over there in Nevada right now. I know a lot of people are wanting to go over there and show their support and all that kind of stuff, but you got to watch these kind of things. But you also need to be on the ground there to get real reports from to find out what's really happening. Video footage, sending that up, getting it onto the YouTube accounts, and duplicating that data. That's a major important thing. Is when events like this happen, you want to duplicate it as many times as possible. Send it to your friends before you upload it. Tell them to upload it as well. If you're just doing it solo and you're doing it by yourself, it's gonna get taken down or banned eventually if it's sensitive material. And that's the thing, right? You got to really duplicate it, and you got to get reports right away, quickly as possible, to avoid it being tainted by the mainstream media, because as you can see, public opinion shapes very quickly with what's going on, and people start hearing this and that about things, and they get confused as situations, especially after the mainstream media gets a hold of a story and just totally distorts it. So it's good to get direct footage from the ground. So I definitely had to discuss that Bundy thing a little bit before I get the guest on today, mainly because it's a serious thing. I mean, this is serious implications, and anybody who's familiar with a guest that I had on my show, Fritz Springmeier, who's the author of the book The 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, curiously the town's called Bunkerville, and then you have the Bundy family, which are listed as one of the Illuminati bloodline families. So that's another important thing to point out there, that many people haven't really discussed for some reason. But whatever the case may be, there's a lot of connections that need to be made there, and keep checking out news because this is a fresh story. I'm sure it hasn't ended. I'm sure it's going to keep. There's going to be things that are going to be happening from here on, especially with a lot more people rounding up there. People haven't even made it there yet that left to go show their support. So there's going to be more people showing up there, and I think the crowd's just going to get larger from here on in. Whether it'll dissipate or not is hard to say. That's the thing. We definitely got to keep our eyes open on these things because they are important topics and they need to be discussed for sure. So that's a good thing to know about. But I'm going to try to give Chris and David a call here to have them on the show. Hopefully I can get through to both of them. This is the first time I've had two guests on the show, by the way. We will be having another guest on the show eventually as well, around 11 o'clock or so Eastern time. He should be joining us. So I'll try to get it here. Oh, it says voice calls I could do for free. Otherwise, I'll have to pay for it, which is pretty unfortunate. But I might be able to... I guess you need a direct feed for that. So I'll just try to give them a call again here. Hello.
Hello, Mark.
Hey, Chris. Dave.
That's David, actually.
Hi, David. How's it going?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good. Just trying to get everything set up here. I might have to actually quickly just hop over to the network Skype account because you have to pay for group calls, and I don't pay for my Skype. I don't believe in paying for software, so.
Yeah, good for you, man. Yeah, are you just gonna call us on a different line then, or?
Yeah, like I'll talk to you guys quickly just right now. I'm just gonna make sure that all the levels are set up and all that kind of stuff. Make sure that everybody can hear you guys, and then we'll try to get the video feed going after. At least as long as I got you guys on right now talking, then that's cool, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just sent Harry a message. He's the network guy, so I got to make sure that he's awake right now and see if I can get on the network one.
How are you doing tonight, Mark? It's Chris calling.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Good,
Just had to talk a little bit about what's going on at the Bundy Ranch there. That seems to have people, checking out the news, but surprisingly, a lot of people still don't know about that. So.
Yeah, I'm just learning about it myself and kind of following along there. You did a good job introducing that. It's pretty crazy what's happening, and I think we're probably going to see more of this unfold as time goes on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an intense situation, and I mean, it's one of those things where you got to keep your eye out on it because it could be a higher agenda as it usually is with things like that. So.
Yeah, and you made a really good point, Mark, when you said the people, the boots on the ground there, when they do get there to not only upload right away but duplicate all of their material.
Mm-hmm.
I advise that to everybody that deals with any sort of circumstance or even dealing with the mainstream media in general. When you're doing an interview with the mainstream media, I've always taken this lesson. It's to have a second camera there, have your own camera there. Because what they actually put on the air and what actually was said are two different things. And they can make something out totally ass backwards. And it's always nice to have your copy so that down the road, when you get started getting nailed with questions, you can actually whip out the original copy and you can see how they pieced it together or deconstructed it and reconstructed it their own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're definitely living in an age of disinfo, misinfo, and deception, propaganda. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you do need Skype Premium to get the 3 video feeds up. So.
Yeah, that's weird because I could have swore I did a group call before. Like there's a bunch of videos going, and I could see everyone's video, But I think somebody else might have started the conversation. Maybe that's what it was.
That's what it is. The initiator needs to have Skype Premium.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know the network has that as far as I know. So I'm just going to wait for Harry to get back to me there because he usually sets that up. But in the meantime, we'll just talk for sure. And I got you guys on screen here anyways, the Skype images and your names and stuff so people could tell who's talking and stuff, which is good. That's a good start for sure. I mean, I've had guests on too with just talking like this, like a call. not a video call. So at least we could talk like this for sure.
Oh, that's great.
So
Well, I really appreciate the show that you're doing, Mark. And I actually hadn't really known too much about your work. And whereabouts in Canada are you located?
Northern Ontario.
Oh, okay.
And you guys are from Canada as well, right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto, Chris, too. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
So
We're
yeah, the
both in
Modern Knowledge Tour is this is an awesome tour that's going all across Canada to the major cities. And one thing I was wondering is this like the first year that it's happening, or has this happened in previous years?
You want me to take that, Dave?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. Okay, Mark. Yeah, it's the first year that we're attempting to do this cross Canada tour. So hopefully this year, always the first time with doing a project of this enormity. It's about building connections, building friendships. It's about establishing, basically establishing a line of communications with all the like-minded thinkers, just like yourself out there, that are passionate about this information, passionate about our human rights, passionate about taking back what some people call the power that we've lost to the elite. And in order to do that, like it's wonderful this day and age with the internet, the work that you do, the work that a host of lots of other researchers have done, YouTube, Facebook. It's all great to connect people in that manner. But also too, it's also what we feel, Dave and I, is the boots on the ground approach, actually getting out there, getting to the small towns, getting to the other cities and meeting these people, meeting other passionate, like-minded individuals, and discussing with them face to face. It's one thing to discuss topics like this over the air, and it's a great public service. But it's another thing to truly look into someone's eyes and share their passion and share their anger and share their frustration, but also share their ideas, their forward thinking, their knowledge, for the betterment of everybody out there. So that's pretty much, yeah. This is the first year we're doing this, and it's been a really cool educational experience, putting something like this together, and we hope everybody out there that joins us on the road has a really good time at our events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Because you're absolutely right. When you're directly in contact with the person, it's much more of an impact. You know what I mean? Definitely on the person speaking and the person listening. I'm sure you guys will learn a lot too along the way, like, which will be cool.
Oh yeah, for me personally, this is quite the educational process. Just trying to get this going. For a lot of people that don't know, this is all basically funded and set up and supported by just regular people here in Canada. Me and Chris are spearheading it. We've got a team of volunteers or people in each city that are just sort of helping us get situated and finding the best venues and whatnot. And it's been a long process of really doing a lot of research as to the best method of bringing something like this to Canada, because to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything like this here, and we're really wanting to expand the alternative media platform in this country. And we are also going to be reaching out to people, online as well. We'll be doing, subscription packages and stuff, so people can check out special features, interviews, live streams, all that kind of stuff along the way. So we're trying to make it interactive, like Chris was saying, with having the social media and the online platforms now available. Just like what you're doing, Mark, we're all trying to get this information out, share ideas, discuss this, and see what kind of different perspectives that we can bring forward. So having the opportunity to just go across the country and do like a road trip format, I think that's going to be monumental in terms of interacting with people and gaining a lot of knowledge. I can, especially from myself, I can see that I'm going to be growing tremendously from this experience.
That's awesome. Yeah. I used to be a tour manager and a tour booker. I had to actually get artists work visas for them to cross the border here to Canada, and I'd send them on tour, and I'd go on tour with them and sell their merch. So I've been involved with the tour managing myself and on a musical front, you know what I mean? And I don't do that so much anymore because of the music industry's really taken a huge hit, and it's harder to get bigger bands here. There's the costs of touring are so high with the gas costs and the lodging, food, all that stuff. It was really hard to do. So, I can understand you the kind of stuff you guys are going through. But I've always, ever since I started getting into the truth stuff and, trying to spread awareness about issues and stuff, that was always something I thought about, a tour of good speakers. So that's awesome that you guys made this a reality, and are doing this in Canada here. Could you guys mention, to the viewer or to the listeners and the viewers, some of the speakers that you guys have on the tour?
Yeah, well, we're going to be starting in Halifax, Nova Scotia on May 2-4 weekend, which is quite cool to do a Canadian road trip and to kick it off on May 2-4 weekend. Nothing more Canadian than that.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, in Halifax, we're going to be having 2 speakers with us for all 11 cities. Michael Tellinger, who's a researcher from South Africa. David can go into a little bit about his research if people out there are not too familiar with him. And then we're also having Richard Dolan from Rochester, New York. He's going to be on tour with us as well. So we're basically renting an RV. We're flying out to Halifax, and from there we do 11 cities. So in Halifax, we actually have our 3rd keynote speaker. So in each city, we're going to be having Michael Tellinger and Richard Dolan doing their lectures. And then we're also flying in or having a local Canadian researcher join us as the 3rd keynote speaker. In Halifax, we're doing it a little bit differently. We're actually having a meeting of the minds, per se. We're having Michael Tsarian and G. Edward Griffin both on live video feed with the audience. For the first time ever, these 2 are going to be talking to each other.
That's awesome.
For anybody out there that knows the work of both of these gentlemen, it's truly impactful, and to actually have them speaking to one another for the first time and then interacting with the audience, it should make for a great few hours of conversation for sure.
Yeah, G. Edward Griffin's amazing. I love his work. His speeches, his seminars. I mean, anybody should definitely check out his stuff if you're not sure of who he is.
Well, absolutely. And I had the honor of interviewing him last year and had just an amazing talk with him. And I can't believe, for a man of his age who's been doing this for as long as he has, how eloquent, how sharp he is. He can just give you facts and information right off the top of his head. Of course, we all know Michael Tsarian is very much of the same makeup, and to have the 2 of them, and both of them have referenced each other's work, but to have a sort of an event in this format, to have them, they're each going to do their own segment, and then they're going to be blended together, like Chris was saying. They're going to have a conversation, interact with the audience, and that's what's exciting about this. It's not just going to be your typical dry event where it's just some guy standing up there going on and on, although there are presentations to be made, but we're really going for that whole interactive approach and also bringing in a real eclectic body of knowledge. It's not just focused on one issue. We're trying to build a tapestry of information for people to observe while we're doing this. And I think that's really key right now, because in the past, it seems like even there's divisions within the alternative community itself, and people that are waking up to realize that things weren't always what they told, and that there's other aspects to consider. And they get divided because, in a sense, even the alternative community has become compartmentalized in a lot of ways. And so it's really, in my view, looking at this for a long time now, I feel that it's time, and it's time here in this country, especially in Canada. It's a strong country. It's a big country. We got a lot of strong, amazing people here that I know people are waking up here, and they want to know, and they want to question, and they want to explore these very fascinating and mind-exploding subjects. So to kind of bring it all together, I really, really wish the best on this tour, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. I think it's going to kick ass.
Yeah, it definitely does seem like it will. And I'm going to try to make it down to the Toronto one. I've just got your website up here, modernknowledge2014.com, and I'm showing everybody, the viewers out there. I know there's listeners on the radio that might not be able to see this, so I'll read off some of the topics here. But sound and cymatics, that's something that I'm very interested in as well, considering frequency shapes everything. A world without money, science and spirituality, occult symbolism, post-human world, the science of light, genetically modified foods and health, origins of mankind, female Illuminati, military UFO encounters, black projects, above top secret information, government disclosure. I mean, these are a list of a massive amount of interesting topics, fundamental topics that people should really know about. And you've got some of the top-notch speakers on this tour as well that are going to be presenting this information. So definitely, if you live in Canada, if you live in any of these cities here that are listed on the site, check it out. Definitely go there.
And one thing with those topics there, and this is just scratching the surface as well as you would know, Mark. This is just scratching the surface of all of the alternative knowledge that is out there. And these topics have to be disseminated. These topics have to be brought out into a public arena where people can discuss this stuff and not have to feel ashamed or feel isolated or feel segregated from other people. And all of those topics there on that list and the many more that exist out there, they're all interrelated with one another. Genetically modified foods goes hand in hand with a world without money. It's one thing leads into another, and it's the grander picture that we're after with this tour. It's everybody's out there and they have their own ideas about certain topics. But one truly takes the time to step back and take a look at the big picture of how we're all being, pardon my French, screwed up here by the world elite, and the different ways that they manipulate our society and manipulate our reality. All of these topics have a huge ancient history to them, a huge wealth of information that not only liberates each and every one of us from the vices of control, but also it's better for our future, the future of mankind, to have these topics discussed in an open and public format.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys experienced any opposition with any venues or any media places on covering this event or anything like that? Because it would seem to me that the media probably won't touch this. The mainstream media anyways.
We're trying to pierce that a bit. We're getting mixed signals. We're getting a little bit of just non-responses kind of a thing at this point. And then in other areas, we're getting a lot of great response. So it's kind of a mixed bag. We really, when Chris and I first sat down and just started, throwing this idea back and forth, we really don't know how this would be received in Canada in general and what the media would look at it as, or, especially even the alternative media. So we are in sort of uncharted water, and it's pretty exciting, but we're getting a lot of great support, and most of it is coming from obviously alternative media sources, but we are, touching base with people that work within, even there's people we've been talking with that work within mainstream media type sources, and they're like, oh, this is awesome. Somebody is finally doing this, and we're here to, there are people that are trying to support you. So it's kind of like they're doing it in a secretive way at this point. So we'll see how it pans out.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're learning, Mark, is that there are people like you and I and like David and like all of your listeners out there that are embedded in the grand scheme of things. They're working for the big mainstream media corporations, and they love this type of information. It's just they don't have the ability within the infrastructure of their company to do or say anything about it in fear of being ostracized. And we're meeting these people. These people are contacting us. The model for the tour was, it's almost, and I want to ask your opinion on this, Mark, it's getting it out there in the road, in the public eye. If it gains any momentum, so be it. That'd be great. But what happens when, let's say, one of the big mainstream media companies is forced to deal with the fact that we're doing this tour? What kind of light does that shed on the tour? I'm already getting people emailing me saying, the last thing you want to do is to have the CBC or the CTV cover this, because what they'll do is they'll twist it, and they'll twist it for their own machinations. I just wanted to know your opinion on that when it comes to this interface between the alternative media community and the mainstream media community.
Well, I would think that if you approach them with this, they won't cover it on, it wouldn't you be seen on the 6 o'clock news or anything like that. Maybe in a couple, more progressive cities that you're going to. Moncton and Fredericton are really cool cities. They're pretty progressive cities. Vancouver as well, in a way. So it's hard to say, really. But I'm guessing that the mainstream media probably won't cover it too much. However, if you submitted the events, they might post it in the events section, like a listing, like a text thing in the newspaper. That's one good way of promoting it and stuff. But I don't think they do an article on it too much. Like maybe some would, but definitely the alternative media. I know Press for Truth is involved in the Toronto one. You're gonna have Dan Dix do a seminar, I guess, down there. So that's really cool. And I definitely think that the alternative media will be covering this. And what's awesome though is in the last couple of years, the alternative media is almost becoming the go-to places for a lot of people. That's, you could see it in the likes and the shares in your Facebook feeds. Nobody's going to CNN and sharing too many of their articles anymore, and you're even seeing it on their likes. Like, sure, they got a lot of likes and stuff, but the alternative media is really doing a good job in getting this info out there, for sure.
And just to add too, that something that came to my mind is that whether with this tour or anything else, any move that we make in terms of we the people, we call this the alternative research field, but technically this is really occulted information. And the word occult, I'm sure Mark, you've covered this many times. Of course, it's just referring to something that is hidden, and it is something that is deliberately obscured from view for one purpose or another. So we're trying to get people information that they're not getting. That's why, of course, this information is attacked, is because it's not on CNN. But what can happen is that if we do get any coverage whatsoever from the mainstream media, and they can laugh at us and they can, say, hey, make sure you bring your tinfoil hats, or whatever they want to say, it actually shines a light on their idiocy and their ignorance of what's really going on, because the fact that we are also having massive coverage from this by alternative media sources, which are gradually becoming more in the public eye. It's not really alternative anymore. So if you have both of them happening, it really puts the mainstream media in a very interesting position. And they've been put in this position many times. And it's like what you were covering when you first started the show with that situation going on in the States. When you have both sides covering it, you're going to get two different stories. And so people really are going to be put in a position to make up their own mind and actually maybe do some research of their own, which is the ultimate goal here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really pisses people off when they get slapped in the face by mainstream media. They look in, they get an article and I'm talking about people that aren't really aware of this kind of information, and they first come onto it. They see how mainstream media only tells you a little bit, and then the alternative media is telling you the truth about what's going on, and then they're like, what's going on here? That kind of shocks some people, and that's kind of like what brings them over looking into the real information, aka the alternative media, which is awesome. And I think a tour like this, though, is really going to help get the information out there to wider audiences and help spread this information. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good topics that are going to be discussed as well. And I think the time is ripe right now for people to learn about their governments and what it's doing to them.
And we're not just going to be... Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. Thanks, Dave. I just want to add one quick thing on that topic. The mainstream media and its interface with the alternative media community. Like you said, both of you, the alternative media community is doing a fantastic job right now. They're utilizing all the tools given to us, the internet, social media networks. It's fantastic. We're able to cover flashpoints around the world. From many different perspectives. We don't have to look through reality in one lens anymore. And that's a breakthrough in and of itself. Yeah. Right now, I think our generation, though, Mark and Dave, most of your listeners too, we're caught in the middle of this transition phase where the Peter Mansbridges of the world, who my parents listen to, whatever he says is gospel. Yeah. And I'm coming from it from an alternative perspective, saying, well, I'm going to listen to what Peter Mansbridge says, but I'm also going to listen to what Mark Howitt says, and I'm also going to listen to what Dave Whitehead says, and I'm also going to listen to what my neighbor down the street says. It's a metamorphosis of the human consciousness in a way where we can look at one topic from many different angles. And this opportunity wasn't afforded to our predecessors, to our parents and our grandparents. So it's an interesting time right now for the mainstream media. How well are they going to adapt? And personally, my big beef with mainstream media, and it came to light last year when Stephen Bassett headed up the citizen hearings down in Washington, D.C., where he gathered a whole bunch of witnesses in front of former congressional leaders and did their testimony. There was a few mainstream media outlets there, but it's unfathomable. I hosted an event in Toronto just as a prelude event to that, where I had Stephen Bassett join us via Skype and our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. But I also had the Honorable Paul Hellyer there, who in the mainstream media today has been made out to be somewhat of a lunatic, and I'll be quite honest. And just, if you ever read his book or if you ever met the gentleman, he is one of the straightest shooters you ever meet in your life, and he is speaking from the heart. And when I hosted the event in Toronto on February 7th, 2013, I had 2 CBC cameras there. They filmed the whole event. And did that film ever see the light of day? And it didn't. And it's unfathomable that they can't cross that divide. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And my fear is when they do start to cover this material, how are they going to spin it? And are they going to have any traction to spin it in a way that is beneficial to, or detrimental to what has already been established as the alternative knowledge community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another point to add to that is we actually see this taking place now with a lot of these different shows that are coming out on mainstream outlets. Like, of course, you have these different shows on ancient aliens and whatnot, and they'll give you, some really good information, and then they'll give you some disinformation or some, something to make it look a little bit crazy. And then, so they kind of mix it, and then they sort of lead you a little bit. And we also saw this with the subject of geoengineering when we saw Joe Rogan come out, and of course he was sort of looked at as being an alternative media personality for a while there, but utterly destroying his credibility with a horrendous hit piece on the subject of geoengineering, clearly biased, clearly edited in a way that is leading the audience and making fun of this issue and making fun of all of the serious research and the sciences behind it, not giving it a fair debate. I mean, I don't really care what people think about it. That's their opinion, and they have to research it for themselves. But you need to offer a fair discussion with and give these guys actually the ability to speak their information. Like with Paul Hellyer, this is not just some Joe Schmo coming out with a Budweiser hat saying he saw a UFO. This is one of the longest standing and highly accredited politicians in Canadian history. He was a former Canadian Minister of Defense. He's served under, three different administrations or whatever here. And he's in his 90s, and he's still out there sharp as a tack. And he's a very formidable man. Meeting him personally was an honor, and he's amazing. And he's out there giving the information that he knows, and again, what Chris was saying, sharing it from the heart. And yet, even in Canada, none of the Canadian media did any kind of follow-up interview with him after he was on Russia Today. So it was just disgraceful. The media in this country, I'm going to say it, is disgraceful. CBC, and so what we need to do is, oh my God, it's horrendous, and we need to change it.
Yeah. I haven't watched CBC or anything in, I'm not even joking, 10 years.
Yeah. About
that. I mean, I watched that one on the G8 in Toronto. I think it was not 2020. Was it 2020? G20, you should have stayed at home. I watched that one, but it wasn't on my TV. I watched it on the internet. I haven't had cable TV or any TV for at least a decade. My kids, they don't even know what TV is half the time. Like, if they didn't go to their grandparents, they wouldn't know what TV is. We just watch DVDs and internet streaming. So
good for you.
I mean, that's because the news, everything on cable TV is fake. Even the reality shows are fake, and it's brutal, right?
That's funny they call it reality show.
Yeah, but they have like 20 crew members there. I mean, I'm making a reality show right now, and I'm the only one there doing the whole thing, filming it myself, no crew, nothing. That's a reality show because I was, there's no influence at all. But when you got these people that are, paid, they have to sign contracts. That's another thing. If you got people on film, you need to sign contracts for that, right? Or apparently you do. That's what they say. But
really, the show itself, if you're going to call it reality show, it should be about reality, should it not?
Yeah, you shouldn't have to. They should know about it. You got the element of surprise is the main thing for a reality show. It should be, But when they're signing contracts beforehand, then they know what to expect, and it's kind of already pre-planned because of that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I
It's
wanted
all
to
fake.
mention, for sure. I just wanted to mention as well, as Chris was talking there, it popped into my head, the main thing that we want to also bring up in this tour, which is not just throwing a bunch of information at people that's going to scare the living daylights out of them and then leave them hanging.
Yeah.
We're very much looking at solution-oriented material. People that are there to bring their experience. People can agree, disagree, research, do whatever they want with it. But at the end of the day, these are people that we chose specifically because of the message that's behind what they're saying.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, even in the alternative media and online in the blogs and Facebook posts and whatnot, you get people attacking little nitpicking things about different researchers' material and whatever. But they always lose sight of the goal and the main message of the person that's presenting the information. And we really want to focus on that. And bringing up Michael Tellinger, I've had the honor of working with him in the past. We had an event with him in Toronto a couple of years back in 2012. And I've obviously been looking into his work for some time. And the whole presentation, he's going to be focusing the bulk of it on this idea that he has about a world without money. And it's obviously just not just his idea. It's an idea that has been forged for a long time. It's based on a principle called Ubuntu. So it's an ancient South African
Ubuntu, yeah.
practice. And it's basically introducing people to the idea that there are certain elements and catalysts and middleman type situations in our society. And money is the one methodology that's used. It's the one global universal religion, no matter what religious or cultural background you come from, no matter what opinion you have about anything, you must bow before this religion and you must follow all of its credences and rules and dogmas. And it is clearly destroying the natural environment. It's destroying a lot of the infrastructure in our society. And so he's coming forward with some other ideas to say, hey, here's the problems, here's what led to this, and here's some ideas that we can actually have. This isn't the only system we could have. There are many other alternative ways that we could be living that would promote freedom, that would promote prosperity, that would promote the bringing out of free energy, which is being suppressed, and that would give people another way of looking at life and giving them the opportunity that we all deserve to have. So the solution-oriented approach, I think, is also key, especially in this time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really happy to feature the people we have on board for this.
Yeah, like when I did that March of Freedom, that's what I did. I walked across Eastern Canada. Well, I tried to walk. I had to take rides on the major highways that I wasn't allowed to walk on, but I talked to people up front personally and documented the interviews and the experiences. And I asked them, like, what kind of world do you want to live in? Like, is this a good world? Is it a bad world? And I was just getting public opinion on the whole thing. And by the time I got to Toronto, I figured it out. The problem is money, absolutely. And so I'm trying to think of solutions while I was doing this walk and talking to people. And once I was figuring out these solutions, I was telling these people that, and the way their faces change, or the reactions you'd get, it's like the light turned on suddenly. They're like, wow, that is the problem. That is the problem, and this is the way we fix it. And I got called a communist. I got called a socialist during my seminars. I got videos of that. That's the problem, though. When you present this kind of information, there's going to be those people out there that are rooted in the system so deeply that they would refuse, and they can't see it in any other way. And their own security is shook by the implications that they.
Well, that's why, and it's a very, and you bring up an amazing point, Mark. And yes, it all boils down to money, and everybody's trapped within themselves, within this superstructure that's been created around them.
Yeah.
And everybody has that light inside of them. And when you did those interviews, when you were face to face with people and you expose that, or you give their light time to shine, and they look back on themselves and discover that within themselves, they all of a sudden they're welled up with this passion for moving forward with the world, with solutions, with a betterment for everybody, a betterment for humanity. And what happens, though, is our society is so structured that the next day that cycle just breaks down and they return back to their comfortable space again. Yeah. And it's really not only money, it's the psychological trauma that everybody walks through each and every day of their lives on this planet that has to be broken as well.
Yeah, the mind control, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I can tell when I talk to people, I can tell where they're at when if I'm speaking about any subject or bringing up any points, and they start firing out the labels and trying to put you in some kind of stereotypical category, you can tell right away that their mind is just instantly putting up those firewalls and rejecting the information, and they're just trying to find a way to marginalize the conversation and put you into some basket with those people that think about those things. And instantaneously, it's a process of division. And this is one of the #1 psychological warfare techniques that's been used throughout history. I mean, I'm a student of history. I find it very valuable to go look in the past as to what's happened, because you can clearly see the blueprint just repeating itself and upgrading and then repeating itself again. But when you see that kind of tactic used, and some of it is just a defensive reaction, but if you're dealing with someone from some media outlet or whatever, they are trained specifically to put you in a marginalized situation. There was a young girl who we're hoping to possibly bring down to the Toronto event. Chris, you'll have to remind me of her name, but she speaks on the subject of genetically modified foods. And Rachel, yes, that's right. And she's only 14 years old, and she's on the O'Leary show and just getting ganged up on by those two. And and I was sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could be there in that studio with her to back her up to these goons. But man, she didn't even need it. Young kids these days are starting to turn the lights on and just show these old, calcified, traumatized adults the truth, and that, I think, is what is scaring the living heck out of this system right now.
It's a slow process, and we all know that it's going to be a slow process. We're in this click, like, move on world, but something about changing this paradigm, it is a generational thing. Yeah. And what we have to do is we have to realize that it's a generational thing. And Mark, like you said, no TV in your household. I got 2 young girls here at home too. And my teaching, passing on from father to daughter, is taking them out into the forest, teaching them about what's under rocks, teaching them about all those things that normally you don't get living in a concrete jungle like Toronto. And it's a generational love for humanity. And it's a generational remembrance of who we are, where we came from, and the true history of this planet that has to be resurrected and has to be carried on vigilantly between generations. This isn't going to happen in one day. This is going to take a long time, but it's keeping the pressure up and keeping this generational mindset in mind at all times.
Yeah, it's awesome that we're talking about this. Like after the broadcast, I don't know if you guys watched the first episode of the show that I'm doing, the reality show. It's called March of Freedom. But if you check out the first episode, I got video footage of my 4-year-old son playing with his Legos, and he's saying, the bad guys, the government are the bad guys. They stole my coins when I was sleeping, and I put them in my dungeon. And that's how he plays with his toys. The bad guys are the government, because that's what I taught him, And the money thing too, like he knows about money, and money causes divisions, and if you don't have money, you'll starve and die. And he knows about free energy, and we go out and pick blueberries. So I take my kids out, and we do the exact same kind of things that you're saying, Chris, is with your kids, teaching them to value the things in life, the earth, what it can give you, and being at one with the earth is another major thing.
To not attach the word value to the word money. I think that's essential. Yeah. In moving forward, right?
Yeah, because money's paper.
Yeah.
And material possessions as well, because look at the rate that we are causing colossal damage on this planet with these current systems and these current models. And the fact that all we do is just, bring in all these goods from China and Pakistan that are made by 10-year-old kids in slave labor conditions. They actually have to put up fences to prevent these people from committing suicide because the conditions are so horrendous. And yet we're just sitting here, consuming all these oil-based products at a breakneck speed. It's as if we want to go plummeting off the edge of this cliff. And so it's not just about, like when people say to me, oh yeah, that's an interesting subject that you're into, that must be interesting, and they kind of look like this is just some exciting field of research. It is that, but it's also detrimental to the survival of a species on this planet. And so to teach that to the children as we're talking, I mean, I'm a father as well. My daughter just turned 2 years old, and to see that light in her eyes and to see that energy, that raw energy and that passion, and she loves to be outside amongst nature and just those natural things. And you just by watching children, observing nature and seeing these things right in front of your eyes, how can you not be moved by that, how can you not say that this is the most important thing that we're fighting for right now, is that we're questioning what's going on? Because clearly, no matter how anybody looks at this information or this system, what we are doing is not working. We are moving in the opposite direction. And it's just people like us have actually cared enough to go and research the reason and the origin behind the problem. And that's really what we're trying to bring to people. Is we're not trying to scare anybody. We're just trying to say, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. And we can change it. Yeah, we can change it.
Yeah.
And just, I want to relay a quick story just before I came on with you guys tonight. I took my 8-year-old daughter to the movies, and we saw the movie Noah. And I'm a big biblical history fan. I love that type of. It's very twisted why I like it, but I like looking into the way that biblical stories are portrayed. And long story short, my daughter's a big naturalist. She loves animals. She's got all kinds of pets, and she's the first one to run out at 8 o'clock in the morning out into the backyard. There's a scene in the movie where it opens up and all the trees are dead. Everything's destroyed, and God's ready to send in his deluge. And my daughter turns to me in the movie and she goes, "Daddy, who's building the ark for our planet?" And I'm like, I look at her, I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, we're destroying our planet. Is someone saving all the animals right now?" And it literally made me cry. I'm like, she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like, and she's 8 years old and she can see this reality around her. And I think it's just that just encapsulates for me everything that we're talking about right now.
You're absolutely right with what you said earlier too. This is the most important battle that has ever been faced upon humanity in the history of our world, and some people just don't get that, and it's insanity. It's absolute insanity. It's contagious apathy amongst the public. Not everybody, mind you. I know a lot of the listeners to the show and the people that you'll be speaking to on this tour are enlightened and awakened to this, but it's like, once you know the information, what do you do with it? And that's why it's important you guys are promoting the solutions too.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right with it. It's that apathy too, and I don't mean to bring the whole global warming is my fulcrum point on this. There's so much apathy. No one knows what's actually going on. But all we know is something's happening. But everybody is so confused as to what type of action we should take. Meanwhile, who knows? The world's dissolving around us. So it's that apathetic disinformation that exists now in the public area of knowledge that really has to be given its time and day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, climate change or whatever, and I think there's a lot of programs that are at work that are contributing greatly to this. And I'm actually going to be covering that on my show on Monday with Dane Wigington. He's going to be coming on to discuss geoengineering and all of that. So there's elements that might be natural, there's elements that are obviously caused. But when they say something like man-made, this is all man-made, and the only solution is that we got to tax everybody and find some new way to find people, you start to realize that, of course, this is obvious. It's a scam. And when we look at everything that we're doing, it just reminds me of that amazing quote by Michael Elner where he says, "Just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health. Lawyers destroy justice. Universities destroy knowledge. Governments destroy freedom. The major media destroys information, and religion destroys spirituality." And if you go into each one of those points in that quote and you actually go research it, you will say that what he's saying is absolutely the truth. We live in a world that is backwards, but it does not. That's not the natural state. I talk to a lot of people that are heavily influenced by the New Age community, and they just look at it as, oh, this is just an experience, and you're not supposed to do anything to create change because you're here, and the evil is here to teach you a lesson and all this kind of stuff. And I understand that you can learn some valuable lessons from negative things, but what I would like to say to people is that this is not the current condition that we are in is not the condition that we are only meant to live in, and it's not the only way that we can live. We should not turn a blind eye to it just because the challenges that we face are huge. We should actually say, no, we can have a better ride, like what Bill Hicks is talking about. We can have a better experience or a more elevated lesson to be learned. If you're thinking that the lesson to be learned is just to constantly be combating evil and all this destruction going on around us, well, that's just white belt level. That's just the lower grade level. We need to elevate it, and we can. And there are people that care, that want to see things change, and we can change it, and we got to get it out of our heads that we're stuck and we're victims. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is what motivates me to get up every single morning and try to contribute in some way to enlightening myself and, of course, enlightening others around me.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, education is key in all of this. Information, education, and the right information, obviously. You don't want to get tricked. You don't want to get duped and then, have a career full of research that's pointless and not going to help anybody out. You want to try to get to the source and try to fix the problems. And that's why it's good there's people addressing the issues, such as all the topics that are going to be discussed on the Modern Knowledge Tour, because these are important subjects. The most important subjects, I would say, definitely. And once these systems that are harming us change, then we can really evolve as a species, I guess you could say. Because I see we're in a de-evolution right now because of corporations and governments.
Yep.
And we need to evolve. We need to get rid of corporations and governments, both entirely, and find out a new way to live life. And then we'll actually see something.
And to your point, Mark, if you look at even like people living in America, for example, there's many quotes from the founding fathers of America that were actually describing government itself and the whole system that was to be set up as a necessary evil. They didn't say this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
They said this is a necessary evil. And of course, people should also look into some of the more Masonic connections and deeper connections that were involved in the founding and how a lot of it was rigged right from day one. But you know what I'm talking about here is that a lot of the founders of the system, and a lot of people that were behind that, they were inspired because they were under tyranny. And it was only a few minutes ago in history that we were ruled by kings and queens. And there's really no difference today. They just have gotten a lot smarter with their tactics. But, when it comes to freedom, you're not going to find freedom in a situation where other people are telling you what freedom is and mandating freedom upon you. Like when you get pulled over by a cop because you didn't wear your seatbelt and they're going to fine you and threaten to put you in jail because you made a decision like that, you start to realize, or even worse, you get a ticket for parking in front of your own house, for crying out loud these days. And, you start seeing these things coming in and you're like, this is not for my protection in any way. You don't really care. The insurance companies make a heck of a lot of money off a lot of the car accidents and things going on. So, this is backwards to say that if we give up freedom for liberty or for security or whatever, freedom for security, that we're going to be more free. No, it's going to go the other direction, and we're seeing that absolutely happen in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on fire tonight, man. I'm just.
No, that's good.
Today.
Yeah. That's good, though. You're making a lot of good points. I think this is a good conversation because we're actually hitting on key points that every human being on the planet should absorb and listen to and know. So after this video is pumped out there, I hope people listen to it and take into account the information that's discussed. And the best thing is we still got close to an hour to go. So there's a lot more to talk about. I knew that this conversation would be really good. And one of the speakers I see that you have on the list of people that are on the tour is Jim Marrs. And I'm a huge fan of his work. I'm actually going through his books right now and reading some of his work. That guy is a absolute pioneering researcher, I think, for this kind of information. Absolutely. That guy is a legend amongst men, I think. And
absolutely. I've read many of his books. I read his newest one, Our Occulted History, and I must say to people, go check that book out. It is awesome. And Jim Marrs had his background as a journalist, and he was the one that wrote the book Crossfire, of course, on the JFK assassination. And that book was the basis for the Oliver Stone film, JFK, of course. And I had the opportunity to talk to him. I'm so pumped that he agreed to come and be a part of this tour. He's going to be also one of the Skype guests. He's going to be Skyping into our Regina, Saskatchewan event, and he's going to be talking about the whole subject of hidden, clandestine, illegal activity, or otherwise known as conspiracy. And yes, conspiracies do exist, and he is going to be revealing what he knows about that, and also giving some people some real, some solutions and some ideas. And I'm just honored to have him on board. We got a real good cast here, and I think that it's no coincidence that we have the very wide range of subject matter and people talking about it that we do.
Yeah, that's another thing. You do have a wide subject matter too, and you have a lot of speakers speaking about UFOs and aliens and hidden technologies and stuff, which is really cool too. Myself personally, I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to UFOs, in the sense of them coming from another planet with green men driving them and stuff. Like, I don't really subscribe to that. I believe that UFOs are real though, because I've seen one in Quebec City with my own eyes. But I think they're suppressed technology myself, military or government technology.
I feel that too. I think that there's a mix of both going on, to be honest with you, Mark. That's just my take. I think that we're seeing that there is, if you look back in history and you really look at some of the things that these crafts are demonstrating, some of them are clearly just, back engineered craft or craft that have been suppressed, or technology, that has been suppressed. But if you just look at the size of this cosmos that we live in, you look at the idea of the fact that, it's impossible that we are the only form of life in the universe, intelligent life, and you just got to think about whether or not we are, what's really going on in terms of who's visiting us, why they're visiting us, are they visiting us? I mean, these are all very valid questions, and I love hearing other people's take because of the fact that this is suppressed and it's under a situation where it's held secret. That's why we're not really fully up to speed on the answer to this question. And it's not for lack of probably the interaction or the possible interactions with off-world intelligence. It's just a matter of whether or not they're being allowed to make any kind of actual contact. And there's a lot of ideas out there about what's going on. And I mean, we could go on and on about this subject, I'm sure, but this is something that I think is really important because either way, there is a phenomena that's happening. There's plenty of evidence to support it, and there's obviously a lot of theories about it, and we're going to be getting, again, a lot of different takes on that subject across the tour.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering, Mark, did Greg Cameron sign on yet?
Yeah, actually, he is. Yeah, there he is.
You want to bring him on?
Yeah, I'll do that for sure. One thing I wanted to point out too is the 6th episode of Unveiling the Truth I did was called The New World Order Alien Agenda Exposed, and that's the only episode I did that got banned from YouTube. I can't upload it. It's crazy. So
why do you think it is?
What's that?
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it got banned?
Oh, I nailed some pretty good information in that broadcast, definitely, and it got shut down pretty hard. I don't know. Actually, the MP3 is available for download on the Unveiling the Truth website if anybody wants to hear it. I'm trying to get a video version of it available again, but unfortunately, I haven't had any success in that. But I would love, the information on there was... I have my own theory about that, actually, the alien thing and all that stuff. I believe that we, the human race as a whole, are the aliens. I think that we came here a long time ago, and what you're seeing on pyramids and ancient megaliths and all that stuff is actually our inscriptions from a long time ago. We had the technology to fly, anti-gravity and all that stuff, because anti-gravity is essentially something even more basic than electricity almost. Like, some of this technology seems very basic, and it seems like we've kind of over-technicalized technology, I guess you could say, over the years. And I think that we came here a long time ago, and the Masons and all these secret societies and stuff who study this stuff in depth have kept that from us, have kept it secret from the public, and they've tricked us by saying that there's green men, there's other races, there's other aliens, and also with all the military. It seems like all these documents that come out about UFOs and stuff come from the government and the military, the untrusted sources. And the mainstream media covers it. They say, oh, there's aliens here, like there's this and that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen spacecraft. I've seen what I would call a spacecraft, something that could fly into space easily. I've seen that flying not too far above my head even, in a perfectly straight line, not making any noise, just before dark, a big disc-shaped thing. I've seen that, and so I know that these things exist, but I'm not sure I believe about the aliens and all that stuff, but I do believe that there is life on other planets, there is other life forms around, but And I think that they've tricked us even because the aliens are green men. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. They have a brain. They have a nose. They could breathe oxygen, all this stuff. I think they're just trying to say, okay, if you know about this, then you're enlightened to this information. If you don't, then you're going to be tricked. Yeah. That's what I put in that episode, and then they took it down off YouTube. So
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Mark. And I've done a lot of my main focus of my research through the years has been on ufology and the whole extraterrestrial question. And I couldn't agree with you more about our ancient past, things that are kept hidden from us. And I've been to Egypt. I've been to the pyramids in Mexico. I've seen these things firsthand.
Ancient Masons.
Yeah.
Like
well, actually, yeah, you're absolutely right. What it is, and I heard this somewhere. I can't really remember the quote though, but all it takes is 3 generations before something that was learned in 1 generation is lost by the 3rd generation down the line. Wow. And think of how many generations there are. And it's just funny. There was an episode on Vikings. That's one of the TV shows that's on nowadays, and it's one of the king's men come into the secret room that the king has, and inside there's all these old Roman treasures, and both of them are standing there going, and this is like the Viking age is 1100 AD, and both of them are looking at all this stuff and they're like, who created this? And it's only been removed 800 years since the Romans were in Great Britain, but they're both looking at all this stuff going, who created this? Did we create this? And it's the same sort of idea. If governments and organizations and religions took 4, 5, 6, 10 generations and kept this information from us, then we would lose it consciously as a civilization. We would lose that as a population. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with you that we are the ones that we're looking for.
Yeah, it's easy to trick people, and that's what they do with the education system and the textbooks with misinformation, all that. So it is easy, right?
That's totally correct.
The education system's a huge issue. When you see what's coming, the state of mind of the kids coming out now, even though there's a lot that are sort of resisting the programming, so to speak, they're not having the ability to critically analyze information for themselves and being basically trained to learn nothing more than just obedience and learning how to answer the correct answer. This is the correct answer. That's the wrong answer, as opposed to the whole real, genuine process of self-discovery, discovery of the environment around you, the world you live in, the people you interact with. Like what Chris was saying, he's educating his daughters more just by taking them out and showing them rocks and showing them trees and showing them a lake and taking them camping and doing all of that, interacting with animals. That they're going to learn so much more from that as human beings on this planet than people are going to be learning in the school system, which is really just there to train you under a social conditioning program so that you can basically come out of school and serve the system. So we're seeing that even what we're doing now, we're bringing Dr. Carmen Bolter on the tour as well.
Yeah,
she's going to be at the van.
I just want to check, though, to see if Grant's on board. Are you here, Grant?
Yes, I am.
Ah, perfect. Yeah, I just added him to the call there while you were speaking, David.
Perfect.
Yeah, I just want to welcome you to the show here. We're having a great discussion with Dave and Chris. I'm glad you could join us, for sure.
Well, yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate being asked to come on.
Yeah, so you're from Winnipeg?
I'm from Winterpeg, yes.
Winterpeg. Awesome.
And we had the coldest winter here since 1898 or something, and this is the coldest major city in the world. So you can imagine how cold it was.
Yeah, I've been to Winnipeg. It's cold there for sure.
Although I was in Arizona for the whole time, so I missed it.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you, man. I grew up in Saskatchewan, so I can feel you a little bit there, Grant.
There you go. Rough Riders fan.
Yeah, my parents they're hardcore.
That's awesome.
So is my mother. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, Grant, you're going to be, I guess, doing an appearance during the Modern Knowledge Tour. Would that be for the Winnipeg event? Hello?
Can you hear us, Grant?
Yeah, you were breaking up.
Oh, sorry about that. So for the Modern Knowledge Tour, you're going to be doing, I guess, a presentation at the Winnipeg event?
Yes, I'm doing the lecture and then the workshop.
Awesome. So for anybody who's not familiar with your work and stuff, could you introduce yourself and explain a bit about what you do and what you'll be presenting there?
Okay, I'll just quick background on my background. I started 1975. I had a sighting in Carmen, Manitoba, and then I had another sighting, and then I went and talked to all the people who had sightings, and half the town had sightings. I wrote a manuscript on all the sightings and stuff that went on there. The local publisher said, Mr. Cameron, you may believe in this kind of stuff. Count me among the unbelievers. And at that point, I said, this is a total waste of time. So I went chasing the Canadian government. And I investigated the Canadian government involvement in UFOs from 1950 to 1954, the official government program on flying saucers.
Yeah.
From there, I went, and that research led us to the former president of Penn State University, Dr. Eric Walker. We chased him around for 8 years, and we published a book on what we learned from him called UFOs, Area 51, and Government Informants. And Dr. Walker didn't want to talk, but the odd thing that he said in 8 years led us to go after the presidents because Walker was going to give his files to the presidents. So I spent about 15 years studying the involvement of the U.S. presidents because basically after my sightings really didn't go anywhere, all I really wanted to know in 1975 was what is the real answer? What did I see in 1975? Somebody in the world must know what's going on. And so I figured the president's the most powerful person in the world. The UFO subject is the most important subject in the world if you understand what's going on. Therefore, I figured that the president knew what was going on. I chased him around. I recorded everything that the presidents had seen, everything that they had talked about, everything about the presidents, and basically came to the conclusion that the president does know what's going on, but he's never going to tell you. So I sort of went from there. I chased U.S. intelligence people. And the prime guy I was chasing was the present head of the CIA UFO desk, who's Ronald Pandolfi, who actually commented on my book after it was out. And it was the same situation that these guys know what's going on, but they're not about to tell the public. And from there, when I sort of gave up on that, I got into consciousness through a sort of a weird, sort of a long story, but a weird synchronicity event that happened. I was watching Colin Andrews give a lecture. I had this download of material, and I suddenly realized that consciousness was where this thing is at. I started chasing the whole consciousness aspect, realized the Canadian government had known about this in 1950. They knew about the mental aspect of flying saucers. So I chased that for a while, and then what has happened in the last maybe year, I've gotten into the contactees. And so what I say is that the most important people in the UFO field, if you want to know what's going on, are the experiencers, I guess you would call them, because you can watch stuff flying around in the sky and count how many green ones and red ones and fast ones and slow ones, but it's not until you actually talk to somebody who's been inside the saucer or who has interacted with the beings that are behind this phenomena that you're going to start to understand what's going on. So I've spent about the last year chasing around and getting very close to contactees and people who do regressions and going after aspect. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about in Winnipeg. In the morning session in my lecture, I'm going to talk about what I call the State of the Union. Like the president gives a State of the Union address every year, and it basically details what's the State of the Union, where are we at, where are we going, and so I basically am going to set out the best evidence that we have in the UFO field, that we are way ahead of where people think we are, that the vast majority of people we're going to be talking to sort of an audience that's sort of a street audience that really doesn't know what's going on, that we really do have an awful lot of evidence that actually sort of nails this down. And the prime one that is the Canadian top secret memo that was written in 1950 that most of the people in Winnipeg will not have heard about, the people in the audience. And that memo stated quite clearly that the Canadians had gone and made discreet inquiries through the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and that they had gone to American officials and asked the question, what's going on with flying saucers? And they were told 5 things. Number 1, flying saucers exist. It's over. I mean, that's it. The Canadian government said flying saucers existed in 1950. They knew what was going on. The second thing that it says, it is the most highly classified subject in the United States, rated 2 points higher than the hydrogen bomb, which is why the CIA, why the president, why nobody is ever going to talk about this thing. And the third thing it said is that a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush is trying to figure out what's going on. Vannevar Bush was the science advisor to President Roosevelt and was the head of the atomic bomb, proximity fuse, jet engine, all the developments of World War II. The fourth thing that the Canadians were told by American officials is that the The whole program is of tremendous significance to the Americans. And the fifth thing, and this gets into this mental phenomena, the Canadian top secret memo, which the Canadian government does not deny, it's in the Canadian archives, says we were also told by American officials that other things might be associated with the flying saucer.
Interesting.
So that's basically my morning speech. I'm going to go through the basic, all the elements that show that there's a lot of stuff out there that people don't know that is very solid evidence that the government knows, and this thing's for real.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I know the government knows about this. They're definitely keeping this on wraps for sure, especially like flying craft, objects like that. They definitely want to keep that on the hush for sure. And Canadian government is definitely known about this for a long time as well. There's been a lot of saucer sightings in Canada, tons of them actually, especially out east. I find there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I think the Canadians have just handed it over to the Americans because the Americans have all the power, they have all the technology. They're, I think, basically running the show. You can see, I even tell a story that Paul Hellyer quotes in his latest book. Is my father told me a story about U2 going down on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border, and that guy from my father's office. My father was an aviation official with the Department of Transport. One of the guys in his office, who was the accident investigator guy, was there, and the Americans were already on the site, and they basically told the guy to get out of here. And the guy said, I'm a Canadian investigator, this is Canadian territory, I have right to investigate this accident. And the guy stuck a gun in his stomach and said, I'd advise you to get lost. He phoned Ottawa, and Ottawa said, you better let the Americans do what they want. So the Americans have a lot of power, and they've actually admitted. I had my 15 seconds of fame was the ability to talk to Dick Cheney on a radio talk show. And what I say, if you get a high-ranking official or somebody, a four-star general of the Unified Command, these are the people who know. What you want to ask them is not, have you seen a flying saucer? What do you think about flying saucers? Who cares? What you want to ask them is the briefing question. Did anybody ever walk in your office and tell you the truth? And truth is the briefing. And that's what I asked Cheney. I said, Mr. Cheney, all your jobs in government. And he was the chief of staff for President Gerald Ford. He was Secretary of Defense under Bush Sr. And when I talked to him, he was in the White House. He was the vice president. I said, Mr. Cheney, in all your jobs in government, have you ever been briefed on the subject of flying saucers, UFOs? If so, when was it, and what were you told? And Cheney paused, and then he said, if I had been briefed on that subject, it would probably be classified, and I wouldn't be talking about it. And that's exactly what the Canadians said in the top secret memo.
Yeah.
It's the most highly classified subject in the United States.
Hey, Grant, it's Chris. Do you mind if I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, you touched on the fact that you think there's a consciousness aspect to the UFO phenomenon, and
Yes.
Your work also too dealing with the presidents. And just before you were brought on, we were having a discussion about, are these craft real? Are they, basically top secret military projects that we're seeing? There's that tangible aspect to them as well. Do you think the two are mutually exclusive of one another, or do you think that they're both one and the same type of phenomenon?
Well, if we're talking about crafts, I think the Americans have got the technology. I think they have technology that they're flying around. I do think there's an agreement between the aliens, whoever this is, and the government. There's just way too many stories of these MILAB things, of people that I know who have told me these stories directly, who are talking about human beings and aliens in the same room. So I believe there's this agreement. What I'm going to say in the evening lecture, and that's where I get into the consciousness thing, to sum up what I think is going on, I think that when you take a look at this whole thing, it's going to end up being much more of a spiritual experience than a material experience. That the aliens have the ability to understand what reality is all about, and we're starting to learn that through quantum physics. We're starting to learn through the gold foil experiment that everything is all space. We learned through the entanglement experiment that time and space really isn't what we think it is. The slit experiment that was done, that Einstein proposed, which was done in 1982, basically showed that if you look at an experiment, it will change depending whether you look at it, whether you don't look at it. And so we're starting to learn this fact that the world isn't a physical world that we really think it is. And the aliens understand that. So they, I think, are coming out of a higher realm, whatever you want to call it. There's sort of a structure of beings above us, and that they are here. And the example that I think is best explained is Leo Sprinkle talks about. He says there are a number of spiritual levels above us, and those are the shepherds. We are the sheep, and the aliens are the sheepdogs, that when we get off the path, whether it's atomic weapons, whether it's the environment, whether it's war, all this sort of stuff, they're the sheepdogs that are to bite at our heels and get us back on the path. So I think they're higher than us. They're not spiritual beings, but they're able to move into this sort of people will always talk about frequencies when you talk to people who've been on the ship, that it's a different frequency. They're vibrating at a different rate. So they understand things that we don't. And so when it comes to the consciousness thing, the key thing to the consciousness thing that the Canadians said mental phenomena is involved. Dr. Eric Walker in 1991 did this very famous thing where he cuts off the interview. We're asking about MJ12, the control group, and he cuts it off. He says, let me ask you a question. What do you know about ESP? And the guy couldn't answer the question. He said, look, unless you understand about ESP and how it works, you will not be taken in. And then Ben Rich, 2 years later in 1993, when Jan Hartson, who's now the international director for MUFON, asked him about how do UFOs get here, how does the propulsion work, he said, let me ask you a question. What do you know about ESP? And then he said, it means everything in time and space is connected. And Ben Rich said, that's how it works, and walks out of the room. So it's that mental phenomenon. What I'm saying is that if you take a look at UFOs, ghosts, psychic phenomena, remote viewing, psychokinesis, precognition, all this kind of stuff, the underlying principle, the CIA calls it phenomenology. If you take a look at John Alexander's website, and he's connected with the intelligence agencies, he will on his website, he doesn't call it UFOs, he calls it UFOs phenomenology. It's all one phenomena. And if you understand the underlying principle, which I think is consciousness, you will be able to start to understand all these type of phenomena, and you will be able to do exactly what the aliens do. The aliens look like they're superhuman, that they're doing magic. They're not. They're just doing something that we really don't understand yet.
Mind manipulation.
Yeah, the consciousness is how it all works, because basically when you come right down to it, really nothing is physical. It's almost like the Eastern religion thing, that the consciousness is first, and the physical universe is sort of a projection of consciousness. That it comes secondary. It's not conscious. It's not physically producing consciousness. It's consciousness producing the physical world, and that they can move into the physical world and become hard material matter, but they can move back out of the physical world into a sort of another, whatever it is, dimension, realm. They're just be able to move in and out. They understand that sort of principle that we don't understand. But the basic underlying principle, I believe, if we understand what consciousness is, then we can understand how this all works.
Just to follow up.
Yeah.
Just to follow up with that, if you don't mind. Actually, I'm getting feedback now. I just wanted to know. Yeah. Just wanted to know. Do you think that we as human beings on this planet, Grant, have the ability? You use the word higher or above us or in a different realm for these alien species or the ones interacting with us. Do you think we have that ability and we've lost that ability? Almost so much there's this saying out there that we are the ones we are looking for. That it's actually us out there, so to speak, that we have this inner power that's been lost to us just through the thousands of years of occult history that we've experienced and we've endured. Do you think we're once at that time where we were in communication with these beings on a different level and we've lost that ability?
No, I think that certain people, if you listen to like Brad Stagger will call it shamanic experience, that there are certain people in history, whether it's Jesus or whether it's Terence McKenna talking about the first cave guy who finds a magic mushroom, who suddenly eats the magic mushroom and suddenly goes into this sort of altered state and realizes there's something beyond the physical world, comes back and tells people magnificent stories about what he's seen, and they say, oh, you're the wise guy, you can be the shaman of our tribe or whatever. And that's what I think it is there's certain people have been able to get into that realm And I get into, in my second lecture, I get into that kind of stuff. I get into this whole thing about musicians.
Yeah, like
where does music come from? Where does inventions come from? I go through 6 Nobel Prizes that came through dreams. I talk about all sorts of inventions that came through people who claim to be talking to spirits, the Xerox machine, all these things that people have never really heard about. And then I go into the whole thing about bands and top guys like the Beatles and the Stones and all these type of people, where basically when they talk about doing music, they talk about channeling, about automatic writing and stuff like this, where stuff is being downloaded that it really isn't a rational, 7 times 3 is 21, carry the 2, that we're getting downloads, we're getting help. So what's happening with this, whether we, at certain points, I think there are certain people who have popped into that realm, whether it's through drugs, through meditation, through near-death experience, through something, and they've entered into that phenomenology range where they get a bit of it, they record it in the history, and then when you situation when you know a little bit about the guy, you get a glimpse of that reality.
Your audio cut out there for a quick second. But
okay, what
seems like you're in now, though. But yeah, that's definitely awesome stuff that you're talking about there. I mean, anybody who's watched that movie Altered State kind of hits on that kind of thing. And also the dreams, like what you were saying, and dreams and taking the mushrooms and having that shamanic experience. There is absolutely some people that are more enlightened and able to tap into that dimension, I guess you could say, of knowledge or of enlightenment or something, and give them ideas, ideas for songs, inventions, almost superhuman abilities, I guess you could say. And there's a lot of people, ESP taps into that too, where you could read people, you could tell what's going to happen in the future, you could, that whole, some would call it paranormal experiences and stuff. And I've used my dreams personally to tap into that, to get ideas. And I believe, like, I'm not scared of death, because I believe that death is just entering dream state for eternity. You become at one with the cosmos, with the universe when you die. That's one thing I've always believed myself.
Yeah.
It's funny because even the ancient Egyptians... Oh, sorry, Grant. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say quickly, I was speaking recently to Dr. Carmen Bolter, who we're also having on the tour, and she was talking about how the ancient Egyptians didn't have a word for death in the ancient languages that they were writing those hieroglyphics in. They didn't really speak about death the way that we formulate it in our minds. They were just talking about, of course, a process of transition and transmutation. So it's really interesting how you were talking earlier, Mark, about a process of de-evolution in a way that we've taken in our thinking patterns. Maybe we're kind of going back full circle to what we once knew.
Yeah, I think our natural instinct is the most important thing, and we've lost that due to conditioning, education, technology, indoctrination, governments, politics, money, finances, religion. All this stuff has divided us. It's shattered our mind into a million fragments, and now that's what they want, like with political parties, this and that. They want to fragment your mind, good and evil, black and white. There's always a division with everything, and the truth is always beyond those divisions. It's through the center. It's not a left or right thing, I think.
Absolutely.
And what it is, go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I just wanted, it's basically rediscovering what we already know.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, it's while you guys are talking about this, it's what do we consider normal nowadays? If it takes us, if it takes some mushrooms in order to access this higher realm, or if it takes some sort of meditative experience, and these are not aspects of our quote-unquote normal life, then maybe we do have these abilities to access these higher realms, to speak to these beings. Maybe we're just speaking to our higher consciousness when we enter those states of mind. So we really have to look at what is considered normal in today's day and age, and the way society basically funnels us through one state of consciousness and disobeying us the ability to access the other states that are out there.
Yeah.
I always look at it like when I lecture, I talk about it as going to Phoenix. Some people take the train, some take the plane. Some walk, some take a bike. There's different ways to get to this sort of area. And what's happened in modern science is, and I sort of quote this, John Alexander used this, that the National Academy of Sciences, which is the top level of science in the United States, there's only 4% of them that believe in any sort of paranormal, psychic type phenomena, and there's only 7% of them that believe in God. In the Royal Society in Great Britain, there's only 3.5% of them that believe in God. Everybody's bought into this random universe thing where everything is physical and there's nothing beyond the physical world. But I think everything is starting to come full circle around, and now they're on the run with the whole thing with the revolution inside the quantum physics world, the experiments that are starting to break this down, and with a lot of stuff like near-death experiences that started after the cardiopulmonary resuscitation was developed in the 1960s. Suddenly you had all these people with these near-death experiences, and there's a movie starting here that was filmed in Winnipeg, this story about the young kid who goes to heaven, and he, all this sort of stuff, he dies. And this is a major movie that's playing in theaters, and you have this kind of stuff today where near-death experiences, where UFOs, where it is discussed more and more all the time. And I think the physical world, the defense of the physical world, you can see the skeptics are really trying to fight back on this, because they realize that we're starting to come full circle around, that people are starting to realize that this is for real, and this new sort of spirituality is starting to develop. It's not the old religion type thing. It's this idea that we aren't just physical beings, that we aren't biological robots, and everything's just a random chance. People are starting to realize that there are these weird aspects to the world that aren't physical.
Mm-hmm. There absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking too about there was like even the scientific experiments done by guys like Dr. Ian Stevenson, and there was some Harvard studies and other studies that have been done about reincarnation, and just even the fact that any scientist or coming from that mainstream academia would cover that, and then you don't really hear about it. It just gets shut down. Yet anybody that's obviously quoting the status quo in that field, the whole Darwinian evolution stuff and all that, they're of course given all the money, all the funding, all the media time and that they want. But anybody that's talking about these types of subjects, from a scientific point of view or otherwise, they're just not heard from. And I think that's really the goal that we have with a tour like this, is to let these voices be heard, because they're not heard through the major channels of information that most people have access to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must have been difficult for you, Grant, to get access to big media sources when you're presenting the information you were doing. You said you've been doing this since the 70s, which is definitely awesome, and you were following the trail right on where you should have been following the trail, which is the United States government, as well as starting with the Canadian government. So you must have met a lot of resistance throughout the years from the mainstream media. How has that been? How has that battle been to get your information out?
Well, I just see the media as, the way I describe it is, the media, it's really not their job. If you understand what they're doing, it's really not their job to get it out, because basically, if you're doing it with a media source, basically they're doing a story a day. They'll do your story and they'll gloss over it, and the next day they have to do another story. Basically, they're there to create stories to sell ads, and the ads is basically what it's all about, is making the money. So their job is just to put out stories. Their job is not really to research. It's still, I say, our job to actually get it out. And I think we are. I mean, if you take a look at the situation where you mentioned Ian Stevenson, I mean, we have 20% of Christians today believe in reincarnation. I mean, it's the numbers for UFOs are well over 50%. And one of the examples I use is one of the big guys who's dead set against the whole paranormal movement is Stenger, Dr. Victor Stenger, who's a particle physicist, who's one of the leaders in the new atheist movement. He was on a radio talk show one time, and he was very upset. He said, "I'm going to write a book on Darwinian being taught in school, and people say you can teach it and you can still have God, and you can't have God. This is nuts. I can't believe this. They're still teaching this. There's only 17% of people in the United States that believe the Darwinian theory of evolution." And I'm thinking, wow, 17%? And they're preaching this stuff in school. They've got all the money and all the stuff. And basically, we got 3 times that many. And I'm saying, like, we have no money, no funding, and yet our word is getting out. People are hearing the message. And it's just to keep hammering away at it. It's our job to do. It's really not up to the government. It's up to us to force the issue. And I say any other social and political movement, it's been the same thing. The women's right to vote started in 1848. They didn't get the right to vote till 1920. If you talk about African American stuff in 64, when Betty and Barney Hill were abducted in 61, it was still illegal for a black and a white to go in a taxi cab together. So you can take a look at, we're developing that all these other social political movements had to fight their way to the top, and I don't think we're any different, that we just have to do our job and get out the message. And you can see from the fact that we are beating out evolution, that our message is getting out there. It may not be getting out the way we want it, but it is getting, especially through the invention of the internet and through podcasts and shows like yours. They can no longer control the media. We can now have thousands of radio talk shows, thousands of podcasts, and eventually it's going to eat away at the major media, and our message will get out there.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Something's got to give, and it's giving soon. I think the bridge is about to break.
Yeah, I think we're making fairly good progress, especially when you see major movies. As I think I was telling Chris, there's a movie coming out of Toronto. My first book, that when I went to have it published, they said, Mr. Cameron, you may believe in this kind of stuff, count me among the unbelievers. Well, that's just been optioned for a movie that's now coming out of Toronto, and it's going to be a major movie, and it's going to be on the contact experience, and it's not going to be evil aliens shooting people. It's going to be on the contact message that the aliens are here, and the nuclear message is going to be there, and the message about the environment and all this kind of stuff. And this is what this major movie is going to be. So we're getting more and more of this all the time. Chris Bledsoe, an experiencer from North Carolina, big business guy. Warner Brothers, they're having the first production meeting next month in Hollywood. This is going to be a meeting that they said will make The Passion of the Christ look small. This is going to be a major movie by Warner Brothers, and it's going to be on the contact experience. It's going to have the whole message about the environment, and it's going to be more of a spiritual message. There's going to be no shooting aliens, us versus them type stuff. So you can see these kind of movements that are being made, that the media is moving indirectly, slowly. And when I say it, when it really comes down to it, it just means talk about it. It doesn't have to be a good story. It doesn't have to be a bad story, because all the other social and political movements that were out there, the blacks, the women, they all had bad movies made about them, had all bad jobs, bad articles written about them. They were ignored by the media, but people kept talking, and eventually, whether it's gay rights or whatever it is, suddenly there was enough people talking about it where it hit that peak, and you go down the other side, and everybody says, okay, yeah, it's right, and the consciousness changes, and we go forward. But we have to get that consciousness to that high level where people know what we're talking about and know what the issues are.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can kind of see the mainstream media, they're going to be forced to start covering the right topics and the real things eventually when we hit that evolution in the media and information, presenting information to the mass amounts of people out there. And eventually, even after that, like, there's a whole new evolution that needs to come through here. We need to break down all the so-called norms of society, I guess you could say. And eventually, we're going to have to rewrite the history books as well, because there's so much disinformation and lies and just deceit in those history books that are being taught in our schools. We gotta rewrite that, and eventually you're gonna be looking on Wikipedia, I think, down the road in the future, and you're gonna say, well, we used to believe this, but now, new evidence proves this, that. I don't know. I think it will entirely be rewritten, I think.
Sure, but it's still up to us to realize what's going on and to fight and to get it out there. Because you're mentioning Wikipedia, and there is Rupert Sheldrake made the fact known that the skeptics on the other side, the people who are fighting against the psychop people and people like that, they have what are called guerrilla skeptics that actually influence Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So if you go to like the Roswell Wikipedia entry, they have actually put their stuff in there. They're fighting. They're doing their little job, and they're changing the entries. So if your kid is doing a UFO project and he goes, the first place he's going to go is on the internet, he's going to go to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And you got to realize that the skeptics are busy in those sites twisting the facts to get their viewpoint across. So if they're going to fight, it's like Canada. This is hockey. This is body checking. We have to realize we got to take the body. If they're going to take the body, we have to. It's our job to do. We can't wait for a Messiah to come and save us. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wikipedia is a good example. Like, if you look at Malcolm X, it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page for the guy who murdered him. Not only that, but Judith Berry Baker, who's a key player, in my opinion, in the JFK assassination, isn't even have a Wikipedia page. All these people don't have Wikipedia pages. So there's definitely disinformation going on there. There's an agenda with Wikipedia.
Yeah.
We see this in other issues too online. You find this all the time, and we've actually had admissions from people, and we've even seen that there is government spending, and there is spending going on too to specifically have these people online going on blogs and setting up websites and spreading disinformation. There's actually a budget behind this, and there has been some great research done on that. I'm going to be covering this on Monday's show as well. So a lot of topics, but what's funny is that in the face of all of that, what I find hopeful is that people are still not buying it. We see, like what Grant was bringing up, those numbers, those statistics of people that are really looking at this from a different way, regardless of the onslaught of disinformation and sort of the mainstream status quo type of thing. We're seeing the opposite take place because people are ready, I think. They're ready for the truth. I've always said that about the truth is that whatever the truth is regarding any subject you're looking into, it is what it is regardless of our perception of it. And we all have our own perceptions of it, but it remains, it stands as it is. So if we have the approach of investigating it, of seeking it, of trying to build an inquiry and do it in a real scientific yet open-minded and creative way at the same time, you're bringing a balanced mentality, a balanced whole brain approach to it, which is totally foreign to the education system, the media, etc. So this is going to turn it on its head because the truth stands. It always will.
Yeah, you can't harm it. The truth is what it is.
Belief doesn't change reality. I always tell that to people when they say, I really don't believe this. I always say, that's fine. Just understand that belief does not change reality.
Yeah,
you may go and get a hole in one. If I didn't see you get the hole in one, I can either believe or disbelieve that you got a hole in one, but I cannot know. Only the people who see it and were there will know that belief, whether I believe or disbelieve that you got a hole in one, doesn't change the reality. You got a hole in one. But people, they sort of think that, because they don't believe something, that it actually affects something. But we have to keep reminding them, belief does not change reality.
Mm-hmm. The word believe itself is to be the lie that you live. Be, lie, V-E. To be the lie that you live. Believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what all words could be broken down. Governmental, split that into to control your mind, govern your mental. Parliament is French. Parler is to speak. Le mot is to lie. So the House of Parliament is the house of speaking lies.
There you go.
Mortgage, death pledge.
Yeah, mortgage, death pledge. Yeah, there's all these. Our own language is meant to harm us. The English language was designed by French Freemasons, and it was meant to harm us with the energies that it produces, essentially. Pretty brutal.
The one thing
but it can be turned around.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we got going for us, and you find this with experiencers or with most researchers, is that once you're in it, you're in. Somebody would Errol Bruce Knapp quit the one time, and we always said, don't worry, he'll be back. It's like this obsession with people who are experiencers. It's like it alters your life, it changes your life, and you realize that this is a critically important thing, and we are like relentless type of people. We're not going to give up until we get what we want, and it's almost like the aliens have forced this with people who have had experiences that they can't leave it alone, they can't put it down, and that's what I think what we got going for us is that I think J. Allen Hynek even talked about that. This is the one science, the one movement that had no funding whatsoever. That motivates itself, that even though from 1947 nobody has ever had any funding, nobody's ever had any money, nobody's really made a dime off this thing, that we have gotten where we've gotten with no funding whatsoever.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of money to be made in this field.
Exactly.
In the long run anyways, you're not going to get huge funding by all these corporations and stuff. Obviously they're going to stay away from you, but that's what weeds out the people. The people that are doing it for the money will be seen, and the people that are doing it for the right purpose to change the world and make people aware are going to keep doing it through thick and thin. No matter what is put in their plate and in front of them, they're going to go through it. No matter what obstacles, they're going to tackle it and get through that obstacle. And that's why I think we're all together on this conversation today. And I think that's why someone like Grant could have been doing this since 1975, because he has the passion, he has that burning in his heart, which Chris and David both described it with many of the people that they said that they've spoken to about this kind of stuff.
It's called an obsession.
Yeah.
I had my friends that went with me. I had about 3 guys that went with me the first night, second night. The first and second night, there was about maybe a total of 9 people who saw it with me. They went on with their life, and I fell off the edge of the earth. It was as simple as that. I mean, once I saw this thing, 2 nights apart, I mean, my life was totally altered. The same as Colin Andrews has described. When he looked in the field and first saw that crop circle, he said thousands of people drove down that motorway and saw the same thing. He said he looked in that field and his life changed forever. And Colin Andrews said, we are like pieces on a chessboard that are being moved around. And I absolutely believe that is true. There are higher forces, there are aliens, there are all sorts of forces that are working on our behalf and moving chess pieces around and making things easy for us. This thing will come to pass because we have other forces, and that's what I get into my second lecture. I talk about, if you think that this is all random, we're going to figure this out and rationalize this out, and it's all very, you got to realize there's a lot of stuff that's happening that is beyond our control. We are getting a lot of help.
And another quick point too, and that's great, Grant. It's amazing. I mean, what people need to understand in this time that we live, the way I see it, is that we need to understand that the power really does lie with us as the people, as humanity in the aggregate. Okay, so people coming together and bringing this information forward, whatever we support is what we're going to get. So if we're supporting lies and disinformation and all of these programs and things that are, bringing about less intelligence and less progress and more societal issues, if we support those things, then that's what's going to continue. But if we start supporting and putting our minds and our hearts behind the issues that matter for the purpose of bringing about positive change, then that's what we're going to get. So we're just trying to encourage people to, even look at things like what kind of, if financially, how are we supporting this system that is kind of overbearing and all these things that these social pressures we're seeing. Mentally, how are we supporting these things? And even on a spiritual conscious level, because we are all spiritual beings as well, energetic and all that, what are we supporting? So I think it's about that. And if people can put their minds behind this and really put a deep, honest, genuine inquiry behind these fascinating subjects, then I think that the result is going to be something that is beyond our imagination.
Indeed. Unfortunately, though, we only do have a couple of minutes left until the hour of midnight strikes upon us. It's been an awesome conversation, though, guys. I really do appreciate you guys coming on the show, and especially the Modern Knowledge Tour. I'm going to try to make it to the Toronto one, definitely, if I can, if not Ottawa. But I was wondering if you guys could give out some links to your stuff so people can check out your research, your information, and what you guys are involved with. That'd be awesome.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, yeah, our main website can be found at www.modernknowledge2014.com. And there you can basically find all the cities that we're visiting. There's a whole slew of our guests, I guess, have all contributed by making promo videos for the tour. And also on the website, there's contact information where you can get a hold of David and myself, ask any questions. And also too on the website is where you can find the schedule and also purchase tickets for the events.
Awesome. And you mentioned you have a show, you said?
Well, I host a show on Monday nights on Truth Frequency Radio. It's called Truth Warrior. I've had Grant on in the past. Actually, you can find the archive at truthfrequencyradio.com and /Truth Warrior. And we're going to be bringing on a bunch of the guests that are going to be speaking on the tour throughout the next couple weeks as we're getting closer, so people can get some insight as to what's going to be discussed. And so that's where the show is truthfrequencyradio.com.
Awesome. Yeah, you have Enemy Within Radio. Is that on that? Isn't that on Truth Frequency?
Yeah, he's not yet. Yeah, some great hosts on that network. Really, it was great information. I've really enjoyed being a part of that network.
Awesome. And Grant, do you have a website or anywhere? You said you're an author of a book. Anywhere people can pick up that book if they want a further reading?
Yeah, they can pick it up at Amazon.com. That's UFOs MJ12, UFOs Area 51 and Government Informants. And the new one that's coming out is probably going to be called Tales of Charlie Red Star. And that will be coming with this movie thing that's coming out, I guess, within the next year. My main website is presidentialufo.com. I have a blog site, White House UFO blog. If you just Google search that, it'll take you right there. But I can actually tell you for a fact that I have so much research, so much stuff coming so fast since I got onto this consciousness and all this other stuff that I really haven't got time to post much of it. Most of it I put on my Facebook site. So if people want to go to Facebook, get my name and Presidential UFO, you go to my main Facebook site where I post almost every day. I'll post something very bizarre related to music or consciousness and stuff like that. That's where most, because I really don't have time to do too much in the way of articles.
Awesome. Well, I do want to thank you guys again for joining the show. We are out of time, but definitely check out modernknowledgetour2014.com. Actually, modernknowledge2014.com, sorry. Definitely check out the work of these fine gentlemen. And if you live in Canada in any of those cities, definitely check out the Modern Knowledge Tour when it reaches your area. You won't be disappointed with the information you'll be presented with. So again, thanks guys. Great having you guys on.
Thank you, Mark.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mark.
And I definitely got to thank all the viewers out there as well. Definitely thank you for tuning in to Unveiling the Truth. We got some great guests coming up in the next episodes. Definitely looking forward to those episodes. We have Vince Palomara coming on. I'll be doing an episode on transhumanism and technological unemployment, as well as Greg Carlwood from Higher Side Chats. Those are the ones coming up, as well as other ones. So thanks for tuning in again to Unveiling the Truth. Peace, everybody.